Hey, welcome everyone. It's our June Lightroom live event. Still want to say hangout for Photofocus, and I'm Rob Sylvan, and my good buddy Levi Sim is here.
Yo,
Hey Levi, how are you?
good. Glad to see you.
Good to see you too. So we have a very special guest, Al Rossin from Adobe is here. He's
Hi, everyone.
yeah. So you're the product manager for
I work on the Behance community team.
okay, cool.
And so, like, part of what we do is product management stuff with testing and, user testing and feedback and all that stuff. So it's kind of all encompassing. We're a pretty small team, so
Yeah,
we do a lot of different stuff.
So Al's here. He's going to help us understand how what Adobe Portfolio is and how it fits in, but hopefully maybe help us clarify Behance versus Portfolio and how all of this,
Sure.
how we have access to these services, and maybe who each one is kind of designed for and geared for. Our audience is generally more photographers, but not to say exclusively so. I feel like there's so many new features and tweaks to those features coming out as a Creative Cloud subscriber. It's kind of hard to keep up. So maybe you can help, help us. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
Same for us.
Yeah, that's what happens. But it's a quality problem. So before we kind of jump into Adobe Portfolio, I want to thank our sponsor this month, Perfectly Clear, been a longtime sponsor, and also a very generous sponsor in that they've got two plugins for Lightroom that we're going to be giving away at the end of our hour. And so the way, it's totally free. The only way that you can get it, though, is by leaving us a comment or a question on the YouTube page. So if you're watching on the Photofocus page where this was announced, which is great, you want to click over to the YouTube Live page. And on that page, there's the chat window. And just say hello, where you're from, say whatever you want to say. Be nice. And more importantly, as we go, if you have questions about Portfolio or Behance, this is the guy who's going to be able to answer it. If you've got related questions about Lightroom or anything in that family, then we'll definitely try to field those too. So we love your questions, and all of those things get you entered to win the fabulous free plugins that we give away at the end.
They're powerful tools, man, Rob. I use them all the time. I was just using them this weekend on portraits and landscapes, and I love what they do.
Yeah, so you can use them as a one-off, like and one at a time, but you can also use it to batch a bunch of images too, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with Lightroom. In fact, we had to demonstrate that soon again.
Yeah. Well, we've had Perfectly Clear on a couple times. So if you look at our archives on photofocus.com, you can look at our past shows, and we've had one of the engineers behind Perfectly Clear on, and it was a really, really powerful demonstration, and kind of cool to get some behind-the-scenes info on that too.
Yeah, Jeff Stevenson has been really incredible every time he comes on and explains how our cameras work and how sensors read information. It's cool. So yeah, definitely check those out in the archives.
And that also reminds me that, so this show, just like all of our shows, is archived immediately. So if you're coming in late, or if you just want to rewatch this over and over again, as soon as we're done, this is on YouTube forever. So you can always rewatch these to your heart's content.
I keep them playing just to get a little Rob Sylvan fix.
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen it in a while. So all right. So Al, help us understand. What is this? How do we get it? If I'm just a person in the world, how do I get my hands on this?
Sure. So if you head over to myportfolio.com, that's where the Adobe Portfolio landing page lives, and that's your portal to the editor for Portfolio. I'm just gonna take a step back to sort of like give like this all some context, because it's a question I get a lot. They're like, wait, you work for Behance, but you do Portfolio, and you work for Adobe. Like, how does it all fit? So we actually were celebrating, Behance is celebrating their 10-year anniversary this year. We started, we've been around for a long time in internet years, but we started initially as we sold paper products. So if you've ever heard of like action method journals, things like that, like those were designed by our two co-founders, and we had those online for a while, and then part of it was then getting all of the creatives that our fans and everyone knew together. That was the original sentiment, was to get the creative world organized and kind of make a LinkedIn for the creative world. And after about like 6 years then, so in 2012, we were acquired by Adobe. And we've basically been like their main community platform ever since. And when I say community, it means that we have members that can sign up on Behance. You start to follow other members and work of other members on Behance, and you can upload your own. So it's really, it's community-driven creativity. So you can upload work that you've done years before, stuff that you're working on right now, or also collaborate with other people as well. So with Behance, one of the other products that we had in the time of when we were just having trying to do 1,000 different things and seeing what would work, we had something called Behance ProSite. And ProSite is sort of the predecessor to all of this, where you were able to upload your work from Behance and build a website around it. You'd be able to basically adjust any single part of the website that you wanted to. But it was all based on your Behance work that you've uploaded. We call them projects, but we'll just call it work for now.
Oh, so that's why they're still called projects.
Yeah.
On Portfolio and things. Okay.
Yeah, and that's actually something that we're kind of adjusting, because Portfolio's been around for about 1.5 years. We launched it, like cold launched it, sort of like slow launched it December 2015. And so the initial idea behind it was, when we learned from ProSite, was that there's a lot of like heavy startup costs when you're building a website. Whether if we're looking back 5, 6, 7 years ago. A lot of it had, clunky editors that you kind of required coding if you really wanted to make it look great. It just took a lot of time to get from point A to point B, go from I signed up to I have a website. So the main purpose of Portfolio was, hey, you sign on, you can upload some work really quickly, or if you're a Behance member, your work is there waiting for you. And you can have a website in 30 minutes or less, depending on how quickly or how much you want to upload. So that's kind of been like the guiding light for everything with Portfolio, because even within the Adobe family, there's 1,000 different ways you can have a website. You've got like Spark, you got Dreamweaver, and sort of like everything in between. But this is meant for creative portfolios quickly and beautifully. Yeah, I think that was like the caveat, is you can do something, it's like kind of like the old like triangle. It's like quick, fast, and cheap. So we're trying to like do all three of those, and I think we do them pretty well.
Yeah.
Because the cheap factor, depending on where you are in the Creative Cloud world, you can have a Photoshop Lightroom bundle that has Portfolio, or if you're already living in the Creative Cloud world, it's there. You have it. You should be using it. And then also, to speak of Behance, Behance is completely free. So if you don't want to have a personalized website, but you want to get sort of the community aspect, that's where Behance lives. And if you're in the ecosystem, both.
Behance. I could sign up for Behance without a Creative Cloud subscription.
Totally, yeah. And that's kind of, that's where a lot of our folks from Portfolio are learning about it, is that, they see on Behance they've had work and they're like, oh, I can build a website around this. But then we're also getting a lot of people who have no idea what Behance is. So we've had to adjust the product over the past 1.5 years, that like it makes sense for people who are just finding Portfolio, know nothing about Behance, or the other way around. It makes sense for someone coming from Behance into here, that the language is kind of the same, it all sort of looks the same. So we've spent some more time tweaking that kind of stuff. And then, I'll show also today, when we get to the screen share, just some of the things that we've done to really try to get photographers using Portfolio. Because with Behance, we built it with, going on 10 years ago, with a lot of graphic design and like illustration in mind. So like they kind of work, vertically, that you're scrolling, you can see the progression there. But we've seen over the years that like the taste of change with how you display stuff, and we've gotten feedback over the years from photographers like, this is the stuff that we want. So sort of slowly baking that stuff back into Behance and Portfolio to make it attractive for people who are already using things like Lightroom and Photoshop, and they should be using Adobe Portfolio for the same purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me make sure I understand. So if you're a Creative Cloud subscriber for any level, Portfolio is included in that.
Yeah.
Now Behance is also included, but Behance could also be just free, just an Adobe ID. You don't need to pay anything at all.
Exactly.
Is there any way to get into Adobe Portfolio without the Creative Cloud subscription? Like, is there just a buy-in for the Portfolio?
Yeah. So one of the unique things that, if you've ever used a different website builder before, what makes this a little bit different is that the build period is, you could potentially have a draft website forever. All you need is an Adobe ID. You sign in,
okay.
And you can, we have about 6 different layouts now. You can build an entire website with all these layouts, and then come back whenever you're ready to purchase it. And the same thing kind of works with other memberships. So if you're the type of, if you have a freelance gig where like, you're kind of on again, off again, that you like have it there, you don't lose any of the content that you have on there. The site would just come down, and then when you're ready to pay for it again, you just go in and you can publish it.
Cool. So anyone could just get an Adobe ID for free, log into myportfolio.com, and just give it a test.
Absolutely. And if actually, what I'll go to the screen share now, I'll show you some stuff for people who don't even want to do that much.
Okay, cool.
We have some stuff that I can show you here.
Wow.
So here's hopefully everyone can see it here. So this is the Adobe portfolio page, myportfolio.com. We give you just a brief overview, and since I'm logged in, it knows it's me. It just gives me this option here, just quickly go edit my portfolio if I want to. But let's imagine for a second I know nothing about this, and I'm just coming in. I'm like, what is this? I can scroll down. We'll give you some examples of sites that are being built on Portfolio. So I can click into it and see like, hey, I want to see this full website, or I want to create a website like this. So if I like the layout that we're showing here, you can start building from there. But then also kind of just like, our pitch, that you can go from Behance and Portfolio. It's optimized for any device. So if you've heard things like responsive design or things like that, this is built for that in mind. So whether you're viewing it on a tablet, an Android phone, sort of anything in between, it'll look great. If you have a domain name already built in, that you already own, you can switch everything over. One of the things you want to do at some point is have that kind of like, you can just do it all in one stop. We're not there yet, but something we want to do. And then you can see on the bottom here some things that might be for Lightroom users especially. You've got Lightroom photos. You can bring stuff in from your online collections. But then also build photo grids with those as well. So if you just don't want to have that long scrolling page of photos, you can build out a nice grid that it fits perfectly. Sort of a funny story, just as an aside, with the photo grids. We were building this. We were like, we're learning like how we should be showing these grids. The bottom row of every photo grid is perfect. And that's really, really hard to do. Like, I can't even go into how hard that is to do on the web, and it's perfect.
You mean so it doesn't have like one empty space at the end?
Yeah, we call it the hanging Chad. We just didn't want that. So like having, so the photos, whether they're wide, tall, anywhere in between, the system is kind of always just trying to fit those perfectly. And you can edit them around, but really like when you first go on, it's like, okay, let's fit this all into this grid. So it kind of just goes into that line of, hey, we want to make this like simple but also beautiful and quick. So what I wanted to show, like, kind of
between devices, so you've got gridding happening all over, whether I expand my window or twist my device.
Exactly, and that's like, and that's why it's like it's hard, but then also like we've had to always straddle of how much control we want to give to someone to like start messing with this versus okay, we're just gonna do it, and like there are some caveats that like, okay, like it might look there's like it has to be displayed certain ways on small phones, things like that. So we're always like kind of struggling with like how much control we give versus like, okay, we'll do it and it'll look good. So just so some of the layouts. So this we built right now. I think we've got 7 layouts. Yes, or 7 or 8 layouts.
I love that because this is like going to In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 7 things I can buy, and they're all good, and I can't mess it up by, none of them are bad, and it's so like.
Yeah, I think that was a big point when we were first like, back about 2 years ago when we were first doing this, the initial thing we're looking at like, how other kind of website builders work. What we've sort of, when we would talk to members of Behance and ProSet, and they're like, layouts. I want like 1 million layouts. And,
right.
As we're going through, we're just like when you have too many, it's kind of like Netflix. If you have 1,000 choices,
Exactly.
like you don't make one.
Exactly.
So we tried to give, layouts that would work for most creative fields, but then we've got a few that are kind of like specific to photographers. So the one I have up top is Andreas. That's our newest one, and that's really built with photographers in mind. We found some great photographers in our community to have there. Then there's also Lucas that has sort of the same appeal for photographers, and the other one that we recently did was Marta. So just to kind of explain this page here, this is where you can select a layout. So since I've messed around with pretty much every layout there is at this point, whether for testing or for my own purposes, you'll see two options for every one. You can see continue editing. That means I've already been in there. I have a website saved. But then there's also restored default layout. So if I've gone in and I've made all sorts of crazy edits that I'm just like not cool with anymore, I can just restore it, bring it back to the point where it just has my work and some of like the links I put in there, but like, you know, it strips the colors and like brings it back to the original one. And with any of these, I can also see live examples. So I can go to Andreas, for example, click on that, and I can see the website that was built with this one in mind. So, you know, if I'm really, again, not ready to go in there and start editing, I can just see what a website could look like with this. If I click in, you know, these are the photos that we have here. But if I go back and I'm saying, okay, I want to start fresh with this layout, I can click right in. And it gives me a warning so that, like, you know, it's like, hey, you've already been messing around with this. Are you sure you want to undo this? I'm like, yep, let's do it. So this is what it looks like if I've had work from Behance. We bring it right in. Or if I've been editing on Portfolio, the work will show up as well. So this is the main editor. We've got the remote here. This kind of fades in and fades out as you need it. And then there's the toolbar here on the left, sort of like the bigger picture things as well. So scrolling through these, what we call these are the project covers. These are the same things that are on Behance. So if you're familiar with that language, this is your project cover from Behance that we pull over. But if I want to edit something, I can click this little pencil. It goes right in. I can customize my cover, change the cover image, edit the info of the project, or just change the content. So here I am in this project. So these are actually pictures I took from Cuba from a couple weeks ago. My wife and I went down there. Beautiful, like beautiful shots I was able to get on here. But so my initial setting is like having, you know, just the straight, you know, vertical view of all the images. But what I could do is go in and create a photo grid. And that ties right into Lightroom. So sort of to bring it into the Lightroom conversation, what this does is it pulls in a window, which hopefully we can see here. Actually, it's a pop-up, so you may not be able to see it. Let me see if I can get back out for a second so I can show you. Show the entire screen so you can all see it. Cool. So what shows up is this Lightroom online collection. And these are uploaded from Lightroom. I've made a collection in Lightroom to have these sync not only here on the web, but then also I can pull up on my phone. I can add to it from my phone. It's pretty neat. So I can go in and select the photos I want in my grid. I'll say import selected.
And it'll pop up and say, we really recommend that you only include 20 pictures. If you start going crazy in your Lightroom web, like I'm like, oh, here's a good one, there's another good one. And yeah.
Yeah, look, with the Lightroom, we kind of like we have kind of have like pump the brakes for a second. But if you know you've got like tons of images on, let's say, a folder on your desktop, like I think we've tested this up to like 100-something images, which like I don't recommend. Like that's sort of like not just as it overwhelming for a system, but I think for a viewer, you know, you want to pick your best shots. Just like hockey, basketball, pick your best shots. You don't want to have it go crazy.
Right.
So here's just a grid of the images that I have here. And I can save my project.
Eric Brown is asking, could I change the layout if after a while I'm not satisfied with my first choice?
Totally. And I'll show you how that works. So let's say I went in here. I'm going to do a couple edits just to show some things here. We'll get back into that in a moment. Let me show you something. So I can also just quickly change how this looks. So if I want to go for the darker view or lighter view, I can choose it here. And then also we pull in fonts from Typekit, so I can just quickly do that as well if I wanted to change the overall like fonts.
There's a ton of them, right?
Yeah. So if I go into Manage Web Fonts, so this pulls from the online version of Typekit. So depending on what I'm looking for, let's say I want to go, this looks crazy and cool. Can add the font, click Done. And what that will do is when I select it, it will change all the global fonts to that font. Now I can go into each page and individually change the page's fonts or change specific parts, but if I'm just looking to just everything has this, I can do it there. So I made some edits, but you know, even after that, I'm just sort of like, meh, like I'm not crazy about it. I can switch a layout, go to a new one, so I can continue editing my version of Marta. You know, a more pop of color, but then still like, hey, like, you know, it's the next day. I'm like, you know what, Marta's really not for me. I can go back into Andreas and say, continue editing. So you basically get one version of every layout before, you know, it would ask you to override it if you try to like redo it and things like that. So you basically get, you know, a shot at every single layout before you want to publish or do whatever you want to do.
Now I remember when it first launched, that's when I did my first one, and there were maybe like five layout options, and now it looks like there's at least 2 or 3 more. So you think there'll be more added in the future, or is this?
Yeah, I think we're probably gonna add more as we have more features underneath stuff that kind of like warrants having a new type of layout. Because we really tried to get 3 photography ones up there, because kind of working in parallel with also launching the photo grids and tie-ins with Lightroom. So it was like, we've got these 2 other features that we really want to show off, and these are the layouts that will show those off the best.
Yeah, that photo grid is new since I've last been in there, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I want to go back now and redo some of my pages with the grids, because I just have these long scrolling pages, and you know, if you have the Lightbox thing turned on, you can click through it that way. But I think
and that's kind of what I want to show. So you can either do it that way. So what we see sometimes is people have the grid up here. You know, they'll have like 5 or 6 images on the top, and then below that they'll have bigger versions of them. But totally not necessary, because when you're in a grid, if I scroll, you can click into an image if you have your Lightbox turned on. I have it turned off, but you can actually have it. You know, you click into it, it opens up, and you'll see the image there. In greater detail, and then even you can do another click that will then allow you to zoom within the image also, which is pretty cool. And then also what we have is on every page, I have it turned on mine, is that I can see other projects that are on my website. So if if I'm viewing this online and I get to the bottom of a project, I can say, oh, here's another one that I want to show people. So these are tulips from our last tulip festival here in upstate New York, and these I brought in from Lightroom also. You know, these are shot on an iPhone. I was able to go right home, pull them up right on Lightroom Mobile, and bring them into my site.
Nice.
It's just really amazing.
Now, kind of speaking of phones, what I want to show is, so we show a preview section here. And what this will allow me to do is it will show my site in a, you know, basically just in a web browser, but on the bottom, I can go in and see what this is going to look like on different devices. So we've got tablet in portrait mode, in landscape, and then we've got phone in portrait and landscape. So you can see what it's going to look like when you publish your page and you're viewing it on any of these devices. You know, so depending on the different view, you've got like hamburger menus that will show you your projects or your social media icons, things like that. But if you're viewing on a desktop, it's just the regular header here. You know.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, it looks really good on every device I open it on, whether it's an iPad or a phone or the desktop, and whether I change the size of my window, it just flows so nicely. I love it.
Yeah, and there's some things you can get in that, that if you want to, we tried to get these layouts that, again, kind of just like bringing the point back that it's, you can do it quickly and easily. But if you want to go in and you want to change some things, you don't need to have these margins set as as wide or as narrow as I have them here. So that's all within these menus up top over here in the remote. So I can change the container of the website, so I can make it the max width. I could say, let's say 1900 pixels, and it gets wider, the whole thing. Or if I just wanted to say like restricted to 800. I can have it do that depending on what I want. Align it different ways, all that kind of stuff. I can go within the menus and change. But by default, it's sort of just like, okay, like this is going to be beautiful wherever you're viewing it.
Right on.
So what I found when I first built mine, I was actually on a bus to New York, and Bus actually had Wi-Fi, which was nice. But because all of the photos that I included in my website were already synced through Lightroom Mobile, I didn't have to upload anything.
Yeah.
So all I was doing was this template-driven, built this whole website on this bus ride because everything was up there. Now I used to do web, management, web design years ago, another life, and when it was much simpler. And I kind of got out of it because you really, as a web person, you really had to be versed in scripting and server-side language and design and graphics and which is great for people who have all of those abilities. I found it challenging to keep up and be at the top of your game in every one of those aspects. So when I first got into this, it was just so simple. But it was it was already well designed, so I really didn't have to think about all those things. But I was impressed with how customizable it was if you really did want to go in there and tweak things and upload your own custom bits.
Yeah, one of the things that we've had that we get requests for that we've had to, I think in some ways hesitate in how we want to do it. A lot of people will come in can I go into the HTML and CSS? And I get the want to do that. You want to tweak every little thing. But what we kind of counter with when we get that question from someone, at least I do this all the time, is okay, what's something on the site that a template isn't currently doing that you want to be able to do with HTML, CSS?
Right.
Because what we've learned is that we've gotten some really great feedback from people who are I want to do a header space to my website. I want to go in there and build it myself. Mm-hmm. And as we got that feedback, we're we could build that into here that more people can be able to do that if they want to. It shouldn't just be the people who can code it that when we get a URL mailed to us how did this person do that? And we're well, they went in they had you have to know HTML, CSS. Sorry, that used to happen with ProSite all the time. I would get emails being how did this guy do this? And I go in to look at the code. I'm oh yeah, this isn't we're just a framework for this guy. This, there's just so much around it. And one of those features is what we call the masthead. So that kind of header top image that I was talking about, that this guy, it's on by default, but I can turn it off or on. But with this guy, you can actually do some pretty cool stuff with it. So you can put in titles, so you can put in a welcome page. You can adjust it so that it's when you first go on. I'll show you. I can add an image. I usually recommend adding patterns and stuff back there because depending on the size of the page, a single image, if you have let's say a centered object, it can look kind of weird. But doing a color, doing a pattern looks wonderful up there. But if I go into things like the margins, and I make this bigger, I can more or less make this a welcome page that if someone's scrolling and they first see this when they hit the page. So you can kind of go in and I don't want to say hack these things, but sort of redesign some of these things to do just that.
Yeah.
And then there's also buttons where you can have, if you want to have a call to action either to go out to another website or go to another part within your website, you can do that there. But also you can add social icons. So if there's, if you're kind of all over the place online, you can have those buttons put in here. So you can turn on Twitter, Behance, LinkedIn, all those things. We recently added IMDb and even GitHub because we had a lot of people who were they're web designers and developers and they want to show their Git. So we were able to do that too.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I thought was really handy is just you have the ability to make just a about me type page.
Yeah.
Just a static page. Kind of
yeah. Let me show you what that looks like. So we'll spend some time on the left-hand side here. So add content, just like it sounds like, is I can add content to my website. But when you've added all this content, you have manage content too. So that's a little drop. That's here. I have little radial dials that I can just turn stuff on or off. So if you're working on a project and it's not quite done, not ready to publish, you can turn it off in the meantime. And then when you're ready, turn it back on. But if I want to go add a new page, I click the plus button on the top left. And right now it's called a project. We're going to be changing this to being page. So it will just be a page. and it'll merge in these two. So for right now, for an about page, I go to custom page, give it a title, and I'll hit create page. So it gives me the same options that I can build a page that has like all the photo grid Lightroom stuff as well. But there are a couple of things that get added into here to make it a little bit different. And the biggest one is adding a form.
Yeah.
And adding a form, I can just have a very simple get in touch with me type thing. I can also add, like within this add about me, like have a text section. So let's say I want to have this here. I can add in text. Something kind of dumb like that. But then I can also change the form if I wanted to. So depending on what line of work you're in or what you want people to get out of this form, you can have it do that. So if you wanted to, so if you're running, let's say a business, you can have things like here, like different fields for different things you want to get in touch with that will then be emailed to you from us. Like you'll get an email saying, hey, so-and-so sent you like a contact form, and you get it in your inbox. And you can do that all from the editing of the form.
Yeah, that's very handy. I've gotten a number of contacts through that. Just people stumble across it, and it's easy.
I was trying to add my phone number to my contact form. Does it fit there?
I don't know. Usually for something like that, I would have it like I'd say just make a text box in the bottom.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea. I ended up just like having it as part of the masthead.
Yeah, we've done. It's funny the ways that we really emphasize like being able to get in touch with people.
Yeah.
That's when we do our sessions on how to build a portfolio, not just an Adobe portfolio, but just like a creative portfolio in general. One of the points we try to hammer home the most is like make sure people can get in touch with you, because like you don't know what's happening the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Your portfolio is out there, like who's viewing it, like who might be just like happening upon and wants to know more. Even like we just had a quick story. We just had our 99U conference which is our magazine that does stuff on creative careers. They do a conference every year, and one of the events that we had this year was a Behance pop-up gallery where we had a few artists that we had their work shown on these beautiful electric object screens, that they were able to go through different animations. Is beautiful. And we were inviting members who were living within New York City, and I was like, oh, okay, like I follow and I know these people on Behance, like let me try to get in touch with them. And their email addresses don't work. They don't have like any of their like handles there, like no phone up, nothing. And I'm like, okay, like I can't get in touch with you. Like that, I would love to invite you to this thing, but like I don't know how to get in touch with you. And it was like, it wasn't just a few people. It was like more than I expected. And I know the concerns of having your stuff floating around there, but like just really having stuff that's like outdated that like you can't get in touch with anyone. It stinks.
Right, like I post my Google numbers, my Google Voice number, which you can get for free in most areas. And then if you need to block somebody's number, it's super simple to do that kind of thing with your Google Voice. So, but it's really hard to get a client that can't contact you. I've learned that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, okay. I was going to ask something totally unrelated.
One thing I just wanted to show here. With the nav up here, you can have, let me just show you the navigation here. So speaking of like having like your phone number or stuff within the navigation or within your masthead, you can add social profiles. I showed you before where you can have it in the masthead section here, but you can also have it turned on up here as well. So if you really want to like have like, your top 3-4 prominent networks, because, there are certain things that kind of just like work in that world. You think of like certain blogs, or like even if you want to direct everyone to like if you're doing stuff in Vimeo or YouTube that's different, like if you do like live broadcasts, things like that, directing people there, you can have those right in your nav. And you want to kind of edit what's up here because, again, just like with your work, you don't want to have too much that makes people really confused. I've seen ones that have like 15 social networks here, and I'm like, where do I start? I see everything, but like where, like what else? So you kind of have to like think of like someone's time, because you're also giving. We talk to different like hiring directors that, or like creative directors, and they're like, I look at a website for like 30 seconds, and like the big thing is the work. But then if like, you have stuff on there, like make sure that like it supports what you're trying to get across as well. That's all that on the social network.
Good idea. Yeah.
And then you can also, you can add links to external sites as well. So if this is just your portfolio, and maybe you have an e-commerce site or you have a blog or something else, you can link. Just a hard link off of there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it goes back to the add content part here. If I click there, there's a link option. Yeah. You put in the name of the link, you put in where it goes. You can have it open a new window or stay in the same one, and that'll just go to your nav up here. So good call outs. If you've got stuff that you're selling on other platforms, we have a lot of people who are using places like Etsy to sell their work, or they have, I guess Society 6 is another one. There are a bunch. If you've got a platform there, or even through like eBay, we've had like tons of people just like go through that. You can have a link go there, or if it's part, we'll see this. If you're part of, let's say like a studio, and like you're just one of the photographers or one of the designers within the studio, you can link out to other places where the stuff lives. All sorts of stuff there. The possibilities are endless, really.
So. Unrelated to those things, so I'm just thinking of things that people have asked me. That last I checked, there wasn't a way if someone wanted to add a watermark to their images. Is that something?
Not built into the upload process within Portfolio. Obviously, if you're working within Lightroom, there are plenty of ways you can, or Photoshop, you can get them in there as well. But there are a couple of, we'll call them security features within Portfolio, if that is something that's concerning. So you can go into let me do that one more time just so you can catch it. It's the edit your settings. And it's a couple things you can do that come off my head. Password protection is pretty helpful. So if you're working with clients that you just want them to see certain parts of your website. We did an event a couple days ago. We were talking to people, and we were saying, you don't want your boudoir photos and like your kids' soccer game photos like side by side. So sometimes you can send like just like the work that you want to try to get. You can send them that link, and they wouldn't have access to other pages, or you could have it just be like, if it's a certain client being like, this is your page, this is your login, here you go. Or, it's your whole website where it's like, you're only giving it to prospective clients, and it's like, here's the password to get into it. And
so would those not even show up on your homepage?
Initially they would show up here on the nav, but you can turn those projects in your navigation off.
Oh, cool.
So if I got, let's say
they're still published.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, my About Me is password protected for some reason. I'd be able to click on that, and I would get a prompt saying, "Hey, like put in the password." But if I wanted to completely get around that, I can go into my navigation options and just turn off things in there as well. Or actually, if I want to change off an individual one. Go to, I'll do that one more time slowly. So go to manage content, and then there are gearboxes next to every page or every gallery. And I can say hide in navigation. So now I go there, it'll refresh, it's gone. But the link still works, the page is still active, and I can send them that individual link so that, if someone happens across it, they're not gonna be able to see it, but that's still live on my portfolio.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Yeah, like my medical photography isn't for all viewers.
Yeah.
Or with something, or with something you're kind of like working over a long period of time with someone that you just want, you want to have it there, but like you want to be able to share it with like certain people, in the hopes that at some point you can send it live. You can do that too.
Oh, good. I thought it was all or nothing for some reason in my head. So that's good to know. Huh.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then there was another security or feature in there. I think you were gonna.
Yeah. So we were talking about the password protection here, but the other one was in site options. This one's kind of interesting. So you can do disable right click on your images. It's we kind of give the caveat like, listen, like it's not impossible to not steal images, but at least it disables that. But then also you go in for your Lightbox images. I can enable Lightbox on images, and then for all my pages, and then the background color and opacity I can do here. so some more stuff specifically for your images that you're there. So you can do like transitions, like if you want to like have it that it loads a little bit nicer from page to page, not sort of like jarring, and then you see everything slowly build in. You can do that here too.
Excellent. Rob, we better do a little station identification.
Oh yeah,
here.
look at that. We're already past
it's cruising along. Yeah.
Here, I'll stop sharing for a second.
So,
give you guys the
thanks, Al.
back.
So yeah, so this is our June Lightroom hangout for Photofocus, and Al Rossin is our wonderful guest talking about Adobe Portfolio.
Hi.
And we're giving away 2 perfectly clear plugins for Lightroom to our viewers. And so all you have to do, if you're watching live, if you're not watching live, watching the recording, sorry.
Right.
We're currently not taking calls. But if you're watching right now, all you have to do is leave a comment or a question in the YouTube live chat that I'm pointing to on my screen, which you cannot see, but I'm doing the pointing gesture. And Levi is taking all those names and putting them into his hat, and he will be pulling 2 names out at the end. You got to be here to say, hey, I'm here, and chime back in, and you get to win. So it's that simple. It's totally free, and just a nice little gift from our sponsor, Perfectly Clear.
Yeah, you can just say hello, like Ken Tannenbaum just did, or you can leave a question, like Photo by Friday has done, and we'll answer that question in just a second. Friday.
Yeah, and no need to apologize, Ken, for joining late. So it's totally fine. It's very casual. But he asked if Ken's asking if this is a competitor to like SmugMug. But I wouldn't think so.
No, I think they
I use both.
Yeah, well, that's like we've kind of like when we've been asked that question, because there are so many different types of like portfolio builders or networks, things like that. We always say like to sort of keep stock of where you're seeing your most action come from. So if SmugMug is like where you're getting like traffic and like you can sort of by the numbers scientifically say like this is where it's working, great. But there's no real downside to having your work other places. So we get the question, especially between Portfolio and Behance, you're like, well, I'm going to dedicate most of my time just towards having my perfect website. And it's like, okay, like if that works, cool. But there's, like I said, there's no downside to just like flipping a switch and being like, yeah, I'm going to have this stuff on Behance also, or 500px, or wherever you're having it. Because there are people who just live on certain platforms and like they're never going to find another one, and we get that. But on Behance, for example, we've got close to 10 million members that are can potentially see your work, but then also people who aren't seeing it, who aren't registered, that are seeing your work. It's a lot harder to find an individual website, alrossin.com versus you're kind of messing around like on a website and you see like a link to Behance, and then you find there's more discovery on certain other websites.
Right. I've also found that creating my portfolio website was a lot easier and faster to do than updating my SmugMug website. Like SmugMug has all my pictures in there, but they're like categorized. And was it in this year that I did, or was it there? But because Portfolio is directly tied to my Lightroom, I just press the letter B whenever I've got a great picture, and it goes to my, like, that automatically adds it to my synced catalog. And those pictures automatically get published to my personal Lightroom page on the web, on Lightroom for the web, and which are totally private unless I publish them. But as it is right now, those are totally private. But I can draw from all those pictures to pop them into my portfolio anytime, and it's so quick to update. So I use my SmugMug site for delivering to clients, and I use my portfolio site for showing to client, like for getting clients.
Right. No, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just saying, can I just share my screen for a sec? I'm just going to show.
Absolutely.
No.
I'm just going to show Lightroom. And so, do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is just to show what Levi said around pressing the B key. So these are collections that I have in my collections panel. There it is. And this little icon over here just shows that these are collections that are synced with Lightroom Mobile. Right? And so this is any regular collection. You can, if you have a Creative Cloud subscription, you can sync this with Lightroom Mobile. Then these are what become accessible whenever you saw that Lightroom link when Al was showing Portfolio. Any photos in these collections are then accessible to be pulled from. Now this one that says New York, has this little plus sign at the end of it. And so that one I had set as what's called the target collection. You can see there in parentheses, target collection. But say I wanted my Glacier collection to be my target, I can just right click on that and choose set as target. And now that has the plus sign. And now anytime I select a photo anywhere else in my entire catalog and I press the B key, B is the shortcut for sending to the target collection. And a photo will be added to this and then automatically synced with Lightroom Mobile. That makes it accessible to me in my portfolio if that's what I want it, or on the Lightroom for web, accessible through lightroom.adobe.com. That was the.
And then I think also interestingly, it's also on your phone, so you can keep adding to those collections. Like, you know, if you're out and about and like you don't have anything else other than your phone, but you want to keep adding to that. That's what I did with those pictures that were from the tulips. Is my wife had like some pictures she took, and I was like, okay, I'll upload that. But then as we were going back to other ones, I kept adding that collection. Then when I was able to sit down on Portfolio, I just added the pictures right there, and they're all together.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think I have a tutorial on photofocus.com about the target collections. Learn more. Let's go over to photofocus.com, do a little search for a target collection. I'm pretty sure I got one of them.
Perfect.
So
yeah, Rob's column, I'm going to plug this real quick. Rob's column on Lightroom FAQs every week is killer. And it is just answers to frequently asked questions. And Rob is the guy who gets more of those than anybody. And so I highly recommend you check out the Lightroom FAQ every week.
It's also a good reminder for me getting mine up there for this week. Thanks, Levi. He's my editor, so that was a little bit of an elbow. I felt.
Get it in there.
He did it in his very nice Levi way. So Al, so you mentioned early on, right? So if I don't have my own domain, right? What would be the URL for my website?
Yeah, so yours would be, you know, you sign up, and you know, it would be like robsylvan.myportfolio.com, and you can edit that if you want to. So you know, if you want to just keep that My Portfolio link, if that's what you want to do, cool. And you can always edit the prefix to that. If you could be, you know, Lightroomers at at like myportfolio.com. But then you can, if you are a little bit more, if you have a domain and you know how to, you know, kind of move the wires around, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
We give the instructions on how to do that.
Yeah, I did do that. So I had already purchased robsylvan.com previously, you know, and I just parked it, didn't use it. And so on that bus ride, when I had made this site, you just follow the instructions on there. You do have to go to whoever's hosting your domain, you know, and just repoint the DNS, you know, stuff, mumbo jumbo stuff, and then it works. It takes like maybe 24 hours for all that to propagate.
Yeah, it all depends on who your provider is. You know, one thing we learned on the community team is we were trying to make like FAQs and like guides on how to do this. Every DNS provider is completely different. You know, their symbols mean different things. Like an A record should be an A record, but until it isn't.
But you know, if you're not savvy and all that stuff, you do it one time and you never have to touch it.
That's it, yeah.
Right, and I'm totally unsavvy, but I got my personal domain name. I don't know what this A thing is about, but it was there. It's information from my thing, and it worked.
And whoever's hosting your domain, or if you haven't purchased one yet, when you go ahead and do that, they've got lots of resources to help you do that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we'll, you know, if we're stumped and, you know, there's like some, you know, still not linked up through our support team, we'll say, hey, it's probably best to get in touch with these people. Here's the info they're going to ask you for, and they can help you. And
actually, speaking of that, when I get questions on the Lightroom help desk for Kelby One about portfolio stuff, because we do have on Kelby One a few classes on doing a portfolio, the help docs that you have, and you might be the guy who maintains it even, because I've seen Al is responsible are awesome. And that's the kind of questions that I get is like, well, what size pixel dimensions do I upload? Or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a project and a gallery, or, you know, those kind of things.
Yeah.
There's very extensive help docs on there, and they're searchable. So
yeah.
And that's linked right off the My Portfolio.
Yeah, there are help options right within Portfolio that if, you know, you're going through and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. If you go to the bottom left of the page, there's little italic I. You click that, it'll get you help.
Awesome. Awesome. We've got another question from Friday. He asked, any way in the nav bar to have submenus? So for example, click on portraiture and then it would show headshot, glamour, family, etc. Can we do that kind of thing?
Question I get a lot. Not yet. It's definitely on our roadmap to add there. But what gets tricky is that when you have, I've had this explained in a very technical way. I'm like trying to think of like how to like explain it for normal folks. When you're, especially in our system, when you're working within responsive stuff, it gets weird. It gets a little bit hard depending on how you're oriented, things like that.
Yeah, and then also for mobile devices, whether they're twisting or turning and what's
so it's kind of like it's like half an engineering thing, like half a design thing of like, you know, how would if you're a user, how would you expect this to work if your website is set to be, let's say, 1600 pixels and you're at 800 pixels, so like not quite narrow enough to be mobile, but like it's still going to look weird if you're trying to like fit it in. And then depending on the type of nav you're using from layout to layout, we would then have to like say this is only for this layout, this is only for this thing. So it's complicated. So there are certain other ways that we're trying to get around that first. But I think ultimately, like when it gets figured out, we'll have it there. But for right now, it's like I said, it's kind of both worlds are colliding on how to figure that out.
Yeah. And the other just cool thing I want to throw out there, which I don't think you touched on yet, but in your if you're someone who likes to kind of track your traffic and stuff like that, Google Analytics is something you can plug into this too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it ties right in. Let me share my screen 1 second just to show some of the stuff we were talking about just now. 1 sec. Cool. So we're back into that the edit settings panel. We talked about domain names. Here's our little spiel on how this all works and how to get help on how to do it. We also have an option for analytics. So this is just put in, if you're familiar with Google Analytics, it'll ask for your tracking code. You pop that right in, and it takes a couple hours for it to start to aggregate. Like you won't see immediate information on the Google side. But you will start to see it. I think it's like after 12 or 24 hours, depending on how that all works. So you can throw that in there and tie right in.
And that's free from Google.
Yep.
You just do a Google search for Google Analytics, and you can have a Google ID and whatever. Yeah, it's ready. It's pretty straightforward.
Exactly.
And you can see how many people are visiting and where they're visiting from and all that good stuff.
Exactly. Kind of on that Google note, we do have a separate area for SEO. And we try to make this good for a lot of members because the whole thing is getting your stuff found. But it's only as good as the information you're putting in there in your meta description. So if I'm putting in only graphic designer New York City, I'm not really differentiating myself like on a search or a specific search for me. So there are plenty of things you can read online of how to do SEO. We have options of where you can put it in here. And then change your website title. This is like when it's in Google, like this is how it will show up in the search results. And then you can also have it on the flip side. You can have the search engines not be able to index your site at all. So if you're not interested in any of that stuff, you can turn it off.
Go dark.
Yeah, as dark as possible, I guess, when you're publishing a website.
Right. Well, and I would think, if you're, doing all those things is good, but when Google's bots are coming through, they're looking for text.
Yeah.
And so your images alone, as beautiful, lovely, and amazing as they might be, if you're wanting the great Google to find your stuff, and for people who are doing searches on, say, whatever the thing you do, you want to have some descriptive text, I would think, on your pages too.
Yeah, there's you can add text to the regular pages. You can add descriptions, but then also within here, and it's unique from Behance, you can also add alt text as well. So that kind of even further ties that down.
Yeah, alt text is the text you can't see unless you put your cursor over it. Sometimes some browsers will pop that up like a tooltip type thing.
Yeah.
And it was probably originally for people who are reading without site, you know, and you could, it would just kind of, the alt
we
text,
put it in for more accessibility. We added that in, and that's, and I think that's also another thing that we're trying to work as well. It's tough, especially on a Behance side if you're a very visually heavy site to have that. So we're adding things like that in to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah,
I love it. I'm excited. I don't know if I made mine before that optimization was handy or if I just missed it, but I'm going to go in and optimize myself.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of the stuff that we've been doing over the last, I'd say like last year or so, is like looking for those little things that, you know, when we first launched either weren't prominent, either weren't there, or that, you know, just completely came to our attention. So, you know, there are certain like big things like photo grids that we put in there, but then there's also like little things like when we launched alt text. That, you know, it's like unless you're kind of looking for it, you're not really going to find it. Even if it's, you know, your first time in there, like, and you're just going in, it's sometimes doesn't mean anything to people. But there are things that are important within SEO and like other places that like, it's there, like it's definitely there.
Yeah, I've already seen things I'd like to go back and redo on my site and add in like those photo grids for one. So is there a place where people can kind of go to see these updates? Is there like a Twitter account or Facebook or like?
Yeah, so we're on Twitter. It's at Adobe Portfolio. What we try to do with pretty much all of our social media that I help run with Behance and Portfolio is that we want to show work that's done by our community. So most of the updates you'll get from us are other people's work and the amazing stuff they're doing. But you'll also see stuff like we try to pin stuff of like new stuff that's out there. So right now I think like photo grids is our pinned tweet, or if there are events happening, like we do portfolio review weeks twice a year, you know, you'll see stuff there. We also have a Medium account, so if there's stuff you want to read from our blog, we have stuff there. And then also just our general FAQ pages, like we'll update those kind of first when something new gets launched. You know, we'll have those as like featured articles, and then we're slowly trying to incorporate like release notes when we update something big on Portfolio that if you haven't been here in a while, it'll get a little splash screen saying, hey, like this affects you, like this is something that's new.
That's helpful. It's really hard to keep up with it all.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking too, when we got the Creative Cloud and everybody was in an uproar about things, and I mean, I wasn't really excited to be paying more, like seemingly more. To me, I thought it was a good deal initially because I was updating every year anyway. But now there are so many things included with this Creative Cloud subscription that just weren't, you know, that I had no idea I would be using so much stuff.
Yeah, and the integration across all these tools.
It's just so great. I love it.
Hey, dude, I see. Well, go ahead, Al.
No, I'm saying that was a big point for the last, I'd say, years, like, you know, incorporating more with the Creative Cloud apps. You know, you're going to be seeing more stuff coming in the next couple of months that, you know, will make those tie-ins a lot easier. You know, and, you know, we're still working out of like, you know, what makes sense for most people. I think that's what takes the most time with our team is like, you know, if you were a new user, what would you expect? If you were a returning user, what would you expect? If you're a heavy Lightroom user, what would you expect? You know, we're a product that's been around for a year and a half, and there are products that have been around 30 years, you know, 15 years, 10 years that like they sort of set a standard of like how you do certain things. So we're kind of trying to adapt within that.
Yeah.
Right on.
So we're coming towards the end. So this is like your last chance if you have a question or a comment to get entered into the drawing, but also to get your question answered. And it looks like, actually, there is a new question.
There is a new question.
From Eric. Eric's asking if he missed the talk referring to a Google search regarding keywords associated with the photos. And we were talking about searches, but we didn't actually talk about keywords specifically. So I don't...
Yeah, like if I've keyworded my photos in Lightroom, do those keywords carry over and are searchable in Portfolio?
Not exactly. That's something that we want to work in with the translation from the Lightroom collections online to go into Portfolio. It's just because we're creating renditions of all of those, so it's not the exact file that you've brought over from Lightroom. Right. But you know, I would imagine those are coming. It's just that there's so much other data coming through that it's like, let's get the photos first, and then we can start to backfill the rest of stuff.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, and I think because the way the photos come in via the Lightroom mobile connection there. I don't know that keywords are included in that smart preview in terms of what would get
right. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think any of that pulls in.
Yeah, that would have to be something else. I mean, they're there, and that you can, I'm sure, see them. Or actually, you can't see them in Lightroom for web either. So I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things that maybe it's underneath, like in a black box somewhere.
Yeah, it's like it still ties back to, and this is like, you know, stuff that we're working on with portfolios. Like, how does it tie back to Lightroom? You know, if you update something one place, like what do you expect to happen? You know, so there are certain things that's like, you know, we've got the image part down, like we're getting those renditions from Lightroom onto the net, and then it's pulled into portfolio. But there's like other information that we can circle in with that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And that brings up another question that someone's asked me is if I brought in a photo, say, from my Glacier National Park collection, it's now in my gallery on in my portfolio. If I were to remove that photo from my collection, that has nothing to do at that point with my live portfolio site.
No. And that's something we're exploring deeper is like, what would you expect to happen?
Yeah.
You know, because as we try to get smarter with those connections and the collections, you know, if you've got 10 photos on a collection in Lightroom Mobile and you remove one from portfolio, should we remove it automatically? Like, should we do that? And like, so far the answers we've heard are like, let me decide if I want to do that, which of course.
Right.
But you know, we want it like, but we want to make sure, like, because maybe there's something that we've been missing for 5 years that like you've expected it to do that and it doesn't.
Cool. Well, it's really cool to see how much keeps evolving in this. I still think it's, you know, of all the websites I've had just for portfolio purposes, it's the easiest, and I don't have to host anything. It's just all there, and it's just so connected. It makes that whole process so simple, and then so simple to show. Whether I just have my phone and I just want to say, hey, check out my portfolio, and I've got it right there, or send someone a link or something like that. It's just very nice, very handy, no matter what device I have.
Well, Friday's got one more question there.
Okay.
Plans for horizontal scrolling?
It's on there. We want to get that done. There's a few things with Lightroom that we're trying to work out first. And the first step of that was having the photo grids. Because when you do click into a photo grid, it does open up a light box you can go left or right from. So you can kind of get that simulated like carousel feeling.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like the first step in a number of things you want to do with photos on portfolio.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, can I show this real quick?
Oh yeah, there you go. That device.
So
is that a mobile device, Rob?
My newest mobile device. Yeah. So this is a Wacom Mobile Studio Pro.
No, a little higher.
A little higher. And so this is essentially a Windows 10 computer in a tablet form. But what's cool is that if I can juggle this. Because it's touch enabled, essentially it's like having a giant iPad. And so this has the lightbox function, and so I can just horizontally scroll, just kind of swiping across that way.
Hey, I think I was in that picture.
You probably were, yeah. That was Teton, wasn't it? So you were there. You were standing in the water.
That's right.
Yeah. So that kind of horizontally going along there does kind of exists. It's not the same kind of scroll, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, and there are plugins that we. You know, one thing I didn't touch on. There's a whole world of embeds that you can work into portfolio. You know, so if you've got, you know, if it exists and it's not there yet, let our team know. We can investigate like if it will work within portfolio. Because we do have certain criteria it has to hit. Like it can't run JavaScript that could be like hijacked, things like that. But you know, if there are services out there that people are using and they're like really invested in that service but want to use portfolio too, we can investigate and see if it will work with sharing on portfolio.
Cool. All right, so I know we're going over our time here. Do you have another minute, Al?
Yeah.
I just thought of another couple. So there's Adobe Spark Page, Spark Video, Spark
Post, I think.
Yeah,
there you go.
Is there a way to integrate that? Like, say I make a Spark page about a place I went or whatever. Is there a way to integrate that with the portfolio?
Yeah, we have. I believe there's an FAQ article, and then we've also have post on Medium on how to do that, because on the videos and stuff like that are super simple. There's just a share and it's an iframe that you put right into the page.
Okay.
Spark Page is a little bit different. It just takes a little bit of like tweaking, and that can be put in there as well. So you can have that stuff in there. Just a little bit more difficult, but not super hard if you're familiar with how embed codes work.
Okay. All right. Nice. Oh, that's great. Yeah, because that's a nice feature, and just nicer to see that integration happen across all of those.
And like there are certain ways you can kind of like hack it along that, you know, if you're not crazy about how it's showing it on the portfolio, you need to create a screenshot of the page and have it link out within a project, because all images on here can be linked out too. So, you know, if you want to have it go somewhere else, you can do that too. We saw that originally and we're like, that's really great. And then we saw the embeds work and we're like, okay, like embeds work, they're fine. But if you really want to have the full experience of a Spark page, you can have it go out.
I see. Okay. Cool. All right. Well,
so I
Al,
totally feel like, oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying we're coming to the end. We got to pick our winner, but go ahead.
Oh, good. Well, I was going to say, I feel like this is really the future of website design and management and portfolio design and things. And I feel like we're getting in at the ground floor, you know, like we get our hands on it early. And so as things develop, it should be easier for me to integrate them into my site, because I don't have to dive in and get them all at once. I get to build slowly and add things, which is a good way for me to work.
Yeah.
So I appreciate this a lot.
Awesome.
What you see is what you get. Editing is really nice. See it before you push it live.
Right. Right.
All right. So did you pick some winners?
I did. We've got winner number 1 is Photo by Friday, and winner number 2 is Eric Brown. And so all they need to do is email me, Levi at photofocus.com, and I will send them license codes for Perfectly Clear Complete version 3.
So how do we know that they know that they're the winner?
They should weigh in right now, like Friday just did, and say, woohoo.
So just leave another comment. Perfect.
That's right. Just leave another comment to let us know you got it. Otherwise, we're going to pick somebody else, Eric Brown.
Right. So Eric, you're still here. Just chime in. Hopefully you are.
And give me a day or two to get that to you. I will have received your email along with many other emails. So thanks, guys. They're both there.
Hey, great. Perfect.
I appreciate you tuning in.
So Al, where can people learn more about you or portfolio or both?
So I'm on Twitter at @Rossin. You can find me there. If you want to get in touch with our team, you can go to help.myportfolio.com. That goes directly to, we're a team of 6 people, so one of us will get it. And if there's a message for me, I'm sure I'll get a Slack message about it. Yeah, you can learn stuff there. You know, and really just the help pages through Behance and Portfolio, you'll learn a lot about what's going on with the products.
Cool. Awesome. So, Al, thanks so much for joining us for this hour of awesome info. I'm looking forward to getting into my portfolio and dusting it off a bit and putting some new images in. Probably a good idea. Do that too. Levi, what's up with you these days?
Oh man, I'm going to Chicago in a couple weeks, and if you are looking for a great place to learn photography and take classes and interact with other great photographers, outofchicago.com is the place. We are going to go and take millions of photographs and meet lots of people, and I think it's just the best conference on the planet. And other than that, I'm also teaching a workshop the week of the eclipse in Montana. Nice. And we will be at the Tetons for the eclipse.
Awesome.
I highly recommend it. We're at this dude ranch, so you get to go fly fishing twice a day, horseback riding twice a day.
There's still open slots for that?
There are still open slots, so there's still a few open slots. I was there last weekend checking it out. It is an amazing place. There were grizzly bears. If you're scared of grizzly bears, there weren't any. But if you want to see grizzly bears, there were 3 sightings just right across the way from us there. It is, and it's right in the hills. It's gorgeous. I mean, you got to come check this out. We're at
how do we find out about that?
It's at the 9quartercircleranch.com. 9quartercircleranch.com, which is, you know, that's their brand. It's 9 with a quarter of a circle underneath it. So and then it's under specialty weeks on their website. And I am so excited. I hope you guys come.
Yeah, I want to go back to that. Anyway, All right. So that's awesome.
Well, what about you, Rob? What's cooking? Where are we gonna find you?
Actually, I'm gonna be just doing some family stuff this summer. Doing something in Colorado. I'll be in
Writing
Colorado Springs.
FAQs?
Right, yeah. Well, I'll be writing Lightroom FAQs all summer.
And Colorado Springs, huh?
I'll be in Colorado Springs. Yeah, I gotta tell me anything good to do there. I'll have a day.
Oh man, yeah.
I'm doing some Adobe stuff with Best Buy. That's kind of fun.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, I've got lots of ideas for Colorado Springs for you. So.
All right, cool. All right, well, Al, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Levi, great seeing you again.
You too.
We'll see you next month.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See you.